So welcome everyone on this channel named Geeks for Geeks School, and today we are going to develop this beautiful web page. Okay, so right on the top, as you can see, there is a navigation bar, fine, a menu bar which we are able to see right on the top of this web page. Now if you will bring the cursor on any of these icons, so this is what we'll get to see. The background color will change, and if you will bring on any of the three text components which are present in between the home and contact options, so you are going to see a sub navigation bar. So if you'll come on about, you will get to see three more options, one with name company, then the second one is with name team, and the third one is with name careers. Similarly, if you will bring the cursor on this services, so this is what you will get to see. Again, a navigation bar is going to appear, okay, in which you will get to see four different options. Similarly, the same effect you are going to see when you will bring the cursor on this partners. Fine, so how can we make this kind of beautiful dynamic website or web page? That's what we are going to check out today in this lecture, and we will be making use of simple HTML and CSS code for designing this beautiful web page. Okay, now let's dive into the code.org platform and access the Weblab environment. So for accessing that, we just have to hit this create button over here, and then we can come on this view all projects option, and after that we need to scroll down, and here we'll get to see this view full list option. When you will hit this beautiful drop down, this is what you're going to come across. So list is going to open up, and here in the bottom you will get to see this Weblab option. Let's hit this Weblab option to access the Weblab environment, where we can define the HTML and CSS codes to design the web pages. Okay, so this is that environment I was talking about. Now here the first thing that we have is this navigation bar, right? So the first thing that we are going to do is we will define a division section with a class name. So let's have a class name nav bar for this division section. Okay, and let's close this division section like this. Fine. Now inside this division section, we have some 5 options, right? On this navigation bar there are 5 different options, but when I am bringing my cursor on this home and this contact option, nothing is happening. A sub navigation bar I'm not able to see on this web page. The sub navigation bar is only appearing when I am placing my cursor on this about or services or partners option. Alright, so we are going to have a separate division for these 3, but these 2 we are going to define directly inside this main division section, okay, for which the class name is navbar. Now how can we define these these 2 things, home and contact? That's what we are going to see. So first of all, we are going to define the required HTML code for this home hyperlink. After that, we will define the required HTML code for these 3 hyperlinks, and then finally we will define the required HTML code for this contact hyperlink. Let's begin. So anchor tag we guys can make use of, right? If for the hyperlink thing. So I would like the user to get redirected back on this home page only if he clicks on this home tab or any of these options available to us over here in this navigation bar. That is the reason I am placing hash. Okay, that is the reason I'm passing hash as a value for this href attribute of this anchor tag. Now the first thing is home, right? So let's define the required code for home. So as you can see, now this home is visible to us over here on the stage area. Okay, now I am going to define the code for this about hyperlink. For this, what I will do, I will first define a division tag, division section, and let's define a class for this division section with name subnav. Subnav is for subpart of navigation bar or subnavigation. Fine. And then inside this division, let's first close this division. Okay. And now inside this division, I am defining a button. Okay, with class name. Let's have a class name like this, subnav button. Okay, and then we can close the button tag, and after that we can write down about like this. Okay, and then we can close this button tag. Okay, so it's a kind of button, right? This is a hyperlink and this one is a button. Now after this we need to define one more division section inside this division section, for which the class name is subnav. Why? Because when I am bringing my cursor on this about, so a sub navigation bar I am able to see, which is getting reflected in red color. Besides, there are three different options which are available to us over here in this sub navigation bar. So how can we create such kind of thing? That's what we are going to define now the HTML code for. So we can have a separate division for that sub navigation, and let's now define a class also for this sub navigation. So I'm going to have a class with subnav, let's say content. Now there are three different options, right, which we are able to see over here. The first one is company, then it is team, and after that it is careers. So I'm going to make use of anchor tag for defining all the three required hyperlinks. And let's now close this division tag also. Fine. Now we need to replace these text over here. So I'm replacing it with the first option, which was visible to us over here when we bring this mouse on this about button. So it is company, then it is team, and after that it is careers. So company, then it is team, and after that it is careers. Okay, so I'm able to see all the components over here on the stage area, right? Okay, now what we can do, we can, just a second, let me eliminate the white space from here, and from here also I would like to eliminate the white space which is visible to us. Yeah, now it is fine. So these hyperlinks are now going to work for this button. The way we have defined the sub menu options for this button, in the same way we can define the sub menu options for this services hyperlink or button also. The only thing that we have to do is we need to copy this entire code and place it just below this tag. Okay, right over here. Now here we are required to make some changes. Now the first changes that we need to make is we need to change this one to services, because the second option, or the third option on this navigation bar as services. Now when I am bringing my cursor on this services hyperlink, what is happening? I'm able to see a sub-navigation bar in which there are 4 different options which I am able to see or which are visible to me. So let's define the required code for those 4 hyperlinks. So the first one is going to be I think bring, right? Yeah. Then the second one was deliver, then package, then express. Deliver, then it is package, and after that we can copy this anchor tags code and place it over here, and let's replace this package with express. Fine, so now I'm able to see all the 4 options over here on the stage area. Let's now move on to this button. So when I am putting my cursor on this partners name button, again a sub navigation menu is appearing on this beautiful web page in which there are 4 different options visible to us, right? So the only thing that we have to do now is we just have to copy this whole thing and place it over here. Let's make the required changes now. The 4th option is partners. So let's replace this services with partners first. Okay, and then we need to replace this one with link one, then or else we can change it to some names. Let's make use of some names. So I'm making use of my own name first, Mr. Gaurav, then Mr. Shekhawat or Mr. Sheikh, Mr. Ambani, and then Mr. Bravo. Okay, so as you can see, all the 4 hyperlinks are now visible to us over here on the stage area, and we are done with defining the required code for this partners name button. Now the only thing that we are left with is the HTML code for this contact named hyperlink. So what we can do, we can copy the code that we have made use of for bringing this home hyperlink on the stage area, which is this one, and let's now define it right in the bottom over here just before this last division tag. Fine, so now everything is present inside this division tag which has this class name navbar. Okay, now let's define the required code for this whole text which is getting visible over here on this beautiful web page. So the first thing that is visible to us over here is the home page thing. So I'm going to define a separate division for the text part, division, then class, and let's name it main because it is a main section, right, which we are dealing with right now. And after that we can end this division tag over here, division section over here, and let's make use of h2 tag for writing home page on the stage area. So as you can see, now the home page is visible to us over here on the stage area. Fine. Okay, and we need to replace this one with contact, right? In the last, I don't want to see this home getting reflected. I would like to see contact. So we need to replace this with contact, and okay, let's come back on this division section. Let's end the h2 tag. Now for these text over here, I am going to make use of paragraph tags. So let's copy this whole thing and place it in between 2 paragraph tags. I'm placing it over here. Similarly, I am copying this whole thing, whole text, and placing it in between two paragraph tags. So if you want to get something else reflected over here in the body section, definitely you can do that. The way I am using this paragraph tags for defining these text over here, in the same way you can also make use of these tags. So now this is the body section. Okay, we are done with defining the required HTML code. Now we are going to come on this style.css sheet and define the required code for styling these components we have on this beautiful stage area. So the first thing that we have to do is we need to remove all these codes which are there in this CSS sheet by default. Now, what is the name of the first division? What is the name of this first class we have defined for this division, inside which all the components are coming? So it is navbar, right? So let's first define the code for this class named navbar. So I would like that the overflow should be hidden. This is the first thing that I would like to do. Then the background color. Let's define the background color. Okay, so I would like to have this color in the background. Fine, this is the code for the black color, which you are able to see over here also on the top below this navigation bar. Okay, fine. So now the navigation bar is getting reflected in black color. Let's now access all the anchor tags we have inside this division tag, for which the class name is navbar. Now how to do that? So for doing that, we guys can make use of the class name first, and after that we can write down the name of the attribute, name of the tag we would like to customize the appearance of. So it is anchor tags, right, which we would like to customize the appearance of. That is the reason I have written A over here. And this is a syntax that you have to keep in mind if you're playing with classes on the CSS sheet. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to put a dot, and after that you have to write down the name of the class. That's how you can access the components which are there present inside the class, or you can say you can access any class you have defined for any of the components over here on this HTML document. Okay, now I would like everything to float in the left side. Why? Because as you can see over here on this original web page, everything is coming on the left side. That is the reason I have passed this left value for this float property. Okay, let's now define some font size. So I would like to have a font size of 16 pixels. I think that will be fine. And yeah, as you can see, the color of these hyperlinks of this button also, it is of white. They are getting reflected in white. So we can make use of this white color. Okay. Now everything is getting reflected over here in white. Okay. Let's now define the value for the text alignment. So I would like to see everything aligned in the center. Fine. And after that, let's make use of this padding property for defining some space in between these text and the borders of this navigation. So as you guys know very well, that padding is used for creating some space inside the component, and margin is used for creating space outside the component. So I would like to make use of these two values. Let's refresh the stage area and see what is going to happen. So this is how right now the navigation bar is looking like. Okay, now let's do some text decoration. So as you can see over here, we are not able to see any underline below these hyperlinks, right? So in order to remove the underline which we are able to see over here, what we can do, we can make use of this text decoration property, and let's pass none value for this text decoration. Now as you can see, all the lines are removed, okay, by this text decoration property. Great. So we are done with defining the required CSS code for customizing the appearance of the anchor tags present in this class. Let's now define the code for this second class which we have defined for this division. Okay, so these are the division tags for which the class name is subnav. They are actually the one which are containing these options. Okay, the sub navigation bar, they are the one which are actually controlling the sub navigation bars options. Fine, so let's now customize that sub navigation bar. So how can we access that? We can make use of this class subnav, and I would like everything to float on the left side. So that is the reason I've passed this left value for this float property. And now we can define the overflow also. So I would like to see that hidden. Now how can we access these buttons, okay, which are there present in this sub navigation bar? So there are three different buttons. The first one is this about button. Second one is where is that second button? Second one is this services button, and the third one is this partners button. So for accessing them, we guys can make use of this class subnav button, right? Let's copy the class name from here, and I am going to first place a dot. Okay, and after that we can write down the name of the class like this. Now inside this I am going to define the required CSS code with which I can customize the appearance of these three buttons over here. So the first thing that I would like to do is let's define something for the font size. So I would like to have a font size of 16 pixels for these texts which are getting reflected inside these three buttons. So now this is what you will get to see as an output. Okay, and after this I would like to define the color of the text which are getting reflected inside these three buttons. So I would like to see them getting reflected in white. Great. And now let's define some padding for these three buttons. So 14 pixel and 16 pixel. The values are same which I've used over here for this anchor tags. Same values I have used for this buttons also. Fine. Now when you refresh the stage area, you will be able to see the output over here like this. So now right now the navigation bar is looking somewhat like this. Let's shrink this window and define a background color. Where is that background color property? This is the one. I would like to define this color inherit. So it will now inherit the color from this navigation bar, which is black, right? Okay, so this is how it is going to look like. Now here, if you will see on this original web page, there are no borders which are visible to us for these three buttons, right? So how can we eliminate these borders which are getting reflected over here for these three buttons. What we can do, we can make use of this border property, and let's define this none value. So as you can see now, the borders are no more visible to us over here for these three buttons. Okay, that's how you can hide the borders of the button. Now we are going to define the font family. So I would like these three buttons to inherit this property, inherit the value of this property from the options which are there present on this navigation bar. So that is the reason I am passing inherit as a value for this font family property. Okay, as you can see now, they are the font family of these three buttons are identical to these hyperlinks over here, which are getting reflected on this navigation bar. Fine. Now let's define some margin also. So I don't want to have any kind of margin. That is the reason passing 0 for this margin property. Okay, so I'm done with defining the required code for these buttons over here, for customizing the appearance of the buttons. Now the next thing that I would like to do is I would like to define the code for the hover property. When I am bringing my cursor over these text or over these options, something is happening. If I'm bringing my cursor over on these three buttons over here, then a sub-navigation bar I'm able to see on this beautiful web page. And if I'm bringing my cursor on this contact or home button, what is happening? The background color is changing. Alright, so let's now define the code for this thing. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to access the anchor tags and all the buttons and everything for which we would like to define the hover property. So .navbar is the class in which all the components are present. This navbar class is we have defined for this first division section, which is present right on the top. And inside this division section, all the components are there. So with the help of this class, we can access all the components very easily. So the first thing that I would like to access is the anchor tags. A is the selector that I can make use of. Then because I want to define something for the hover part, that is the reason I'm making use of this hover property. Let's place a comma, and then for accessing this division section for which the class name is subnav, we can write down the name of the class first. Okay, and then we can put this hover thing. Similarly, we can for accessing this class subnav button, we just have to copy this class and place it over here. Fine. Now we don't need to put this comma over here. Why? Because we would like to apply this hover property on all the elements for which the class name is this. Okay, and so that is the reason I'm putting a dot over here. Now how this platform is going to read this whole code? It will take it as all the anchor tags which are present inside this class name, inside the component for which the class name is navbar, and all the components which are present inside this class subnav button, which is present inside this class subnav. So this hover property will be applied on all those components. And what I would like to happen when the user will bring the cursor over any of these components which are present inside these classes. So I would like the background color to change to red. That is the reason defining this code over here. Now if you refresh this stage area and enlarge the window and bring your cursor over these options, you will be able to see the changes getting reflected over here. See? Fine. So here also the background color is changing, and here also the background color is changing when I'm putting my cursor on any of these components. Okay. Let's now define the required CSS code for this class, okay, which we have defined for this Subnavigation menu. So how can we access this class? We just have to copy this class name from here, and then we can come on this CSS file. Let's put a dot and write down the name of the class. Okay. Now the first thing that I would like to do is, when the user will come on this web page, initially he will not be able to see the sub navigation bar reflected over here on this navigation, on this beautiful web page. Now how can we make it possible? So for making it possible, we can make use of this display property, and we can pass this value none for the display property. Now whatever we have defined is, inside this sub navigation classes division section, everything is going to everything will go disappear. So all these four options, and then these three options will go disappear, and the only thing that will be visible to us over here on the stage area will be these options and this navigation bar and this whole text. Fine. Let's shrink this window, coming back on this CSS file, and now I am going to define something for the position. So I would like to define this value absolute for the position of the submenu. Okay, and then left, the space between the left border of this page and the content of the submenu should be 0. After that, let's define the background color also for this submenu. So I would like to have a background color of red. Why I am defining this value red over here? Because if you will bring your cursor on any of these components, so the submenu will appear and it is red in color. That is the reason I have defined red as a value for this background color for this sub navigation components. I would like the sub navigation menu to cover the entire width of the page. That is the reason passing this 100% value for this width property. Okay, now let's define the code for these anchor tags which are there inside this subnav content. Now how can we access these anchor tags? We can copy this class name and place it over here, put a dot, and after that we can write down A, because this is the tag we would like to customize the appearance of. Fine, so I would like to see everything floating on the left side. That is the reason passing this left value for this float property. Second thing that I would like to do is color should be white, and then let's define something for the text decoration also. I don't want to see any kind of underlined like this below the hyperlinks which we have in the sub navigation menu. That is the reason passing this none value for the text decoration field, text decoration property. Okay, so I'm done with defining the required CSS code for this thing. Now let's come back on this original web page. See, if I'll bring this cursor over this services button, so the sub navigation bar is getting visible to us. Now there are four options which we are able to see. If I'll bring this cursor on any of these four options, see what is going to happen. The background color of these options will change. So it is changing to a color which is somewhat gray. Right, now how can we get this kind of effect? So using the hover property, yes, we can get that kind of output. So for defining the hover property for these anchor tags which are coming inside this class, we can copy this whole thing and place it over here. Fine, and after that we can write down this hover like this. So the thing that I would like to do is I would like to change the background color of the options which are going to be visible to us when we will place this cursor on any of these three buttons. So the color which is getting reflected right now in the background of this package option is, I think, somewhat gray. So we can make use of this code 𝙁𝙤𝙀𝙀. Yeah, this is going to give us the perfect output. And you know what else is happening? The second thing which is happening is that the color of the text is also changing. Right now it is white. If I will bring my cursor on this link 4, so the color of this link 4 has changed from white to black. So for this also we have to define the code. Now we can make use of this color property. And let's pass this value black for this color property. So done with defining the required code for this hover property. Now how can we define the code for this effect? For this effect, when I'm bringing my cursor over any of these three options, the sub navigation bar is visible to us on this beautiful browser. How can we define the code? What is the code that we can make use of for getting this kind of effect, for getting this kind of output? That's what we are going to check out. So the class inside which these components are present is this subnav. Let's access this class first. So we can make use of this code subnav, and we need to place a dot also just before this class name. Fine, and then we can write down hover. Now what is the class name we have defined for this this sub navigation anchor tag? So this is the name of the class. So let's make use of this class name and access all the anchor tags we have inside this class. Fine. So when someone will hover on any of the components present inside this sub navigation class, what should happen? So I would like the display, I would like to see a block kind of display, right? So now this is what you will get to see as an output. When I am bringing my cursor over these buttons, I am able to see the required changes getting reflected on the web page. So I'm getting the required output. Fine, let's run this page on a bigger window and see what is the output we will get finally. Okay, so this is how our page is looking like. And now let's bring the cursor on this about button. Okay, so the sub navigation bar is visible to us, and all the three options are also getting reflected over here in this on this sub navigation bar. Besides this, if I'm bringing my cursor on any of these three options, the background color is changing and the color of the this text is also changing from white to black. Okay, so this is how you can get this, you can design this sub navigation bar. Fine. Now let's go back on this CSS code and define the required code for customizing the appearance of this text over here. You know, the text which is getting reflected in this main section. Now the class that we have defined for this text over here is this main class. So let's make use of this class for customizing the appearance of the text which is getting reflected over here right now. So dot main, and then the first thing that I would like to do is let's define the margin left for this. So I don't want to see any kind of gap in between the pages border and this text over here. That is the reason passed 0 value for this margin left property. Let's customize the font size. So I would like to see them getting reflected in this font size. Now see, this is what we are able to see over here on this web page. So the font size has now changed and it is now of 28 pixels. Let's define some padding also. So padding is going to be 0 pixels and 10 pixels. And then if you want to if you don't want to see any kind of space in between this home page and the top portion, you can make use of this margin top and pass 0 value for this margin top property. Let's now access this page on a bigger window and see what is the kind of web page we are going to get. So this is the output you will get to see when you will run this web page on a bigger window. So now the text is visible to us in the main section like this, and we are able to see this navigation bar getting reflected right on the top of this beautiful web page. And if you will bring the cursor on any of these options, you will be able to see the desired result also. Fine. So this is how you can develop a beautiful web page with a sub menu. Do share this video in your group so that it can reach to the maximum students possible. And thank you very much for joining me in